The pregnant beggar had been sitting outside on Heart City Street for hours. Most people ignored her, but one woman acknowledged her presence and offered assistance. Their paths crossed again shortly after, when the woman followed the beggar and made a shocking discovery. When Melissa came out of the store, she saw the beggar and felt drawn to her. Melissa had a big bag of groceries but put them down to watch the sad woman on the sidewalk. People were ignoring the beggar, which puzzled Melissa. Normally, she wouldn't pay much attention to homeless people as the city was full of them. But this woman's large pregnant belly made Melissa feel even more sympathy. The beggar stood out, and Melissa couldn't just walk past her without helping. Melissa went over to the homeless woman who looked lost and desperate. When Melissa got closer, she saw that the beggar's money canister was empty. Without hesitation, Melissa took out her wallet and gave some change, thinking this would be their last interaction. However, this small act of kindness set off a chain of events. As Melissa walked away, she heard the beggar's voice behind her. She turned around and saw the beggar waving at her. Melissa wondered if the beggar wanted to thank her for the change. The beggar looked desperate, as if she wanted to say something important. But Melissa realized she was running late. She still had to do some final grocery shopping and catch her subway connection in 30 minutes. Despite wanting to help the pregnant beggar, Melissa knew she couldn't afford any more delays. So after hesitating for a few seconds, she decided to leave. Melissa hurried to the last store on her list, thinking it would be the last time she saw the beggar. However, she was in for a huge surprise. It was time to head home after picking up the last groceries at the nearby convenience store. The subway station was just at the end of the street, so she would probably make it if she picked up the pace. Melissa quickened her steps and rushed across the platform, reaching the train just before it departed. The exhausted Melissa sat down in her subway seat. She was happy that she made it. Now she was ready to relax, just sitting at home with a warm cup of tea. Unfortunately for her, this fantasy had to wait because the moment she sat down, she heard a familiar voice coming from the left. The voice wasn't that loud, but the familiarity made the sound reach Melissa's ear perfectly. How can this be? I just saw her half an hour ago. Melissa looked to her left and spotted the beggar from before among the crowd of people. But something was off in this scenario. Something was completely different in this picture. But the pregnant beggar, who was sporting raggedy clothes and messed up hair before, was now all cleaned up. The woman still had her baby bump but wore a nice navy suit and looked meticulously groomed. "What is going on over here?" Melissa said. The sight of the well-dressed beggar captivated Melissa immensely. There was something about this woman that just pulled Melissa's thoughts toward her. Who was she? Why is she looking so different now? Was she even a beggar? A million thoughts ran through the mind of the confused woman. That's when something instinctive happened. The subway stopped at the next station, and the well-dressed beggar got off. Melissa, even though she still had 2 more stations to go, also got off. She reacted without thinking. Melissa stood on the platform, amazed at her own actions. She wondered why she did it, but it was too late to go back. The train had already left. Seeing the well-dressed beggar on the platform, Melissa forgot about her confusion. The beggar seemed nervous, as if looking for something specific. Melissa hid behind a pillar to observe without being seen. Melissa wondered what the woman was looking for. She heard the beggar's voice again, this time recognizing it. She looked behind her and saw a man approaching. He smiled and wore a similar suit to the woman. They clearly knew each other, talking intensely and looking around nervously. Melissa was intrigued by their behavior, as if they didn't want to be overheard. But it was too late. Melissa was already listening from the shadows. After some area scanning, the mysterious duo walked over to a secluded part at the end of the platform, a quiet place where not a single person stood waiting. There, they could talk freely. But for some reason, Melissa still kept following them. "I still don't know why I did that," she later proclaimed. Reaching the end of the platform, Melissa tried to make out what the mysterious duo was talking about. But then, an unwelcome interruption occurred. A new subway train with passengers arrived at the station. Once the doors opened up, the entire platform flooded with passengers instantly. And that was a problem. It was a chaotic scene to behold, but what was most annoying was that it made it extremely difficult for Melissa to spot the beggar and her male companion. The ongoing stream of passing travelers completely shrouded them. And once the dust settled, the man and woman were gone completely. Did they vanish into thin air, or were they on to me? And did they use this opportunity to run? Whatever it was, Melissa felt disappointed by this outcome. She was always quiet and shy, but this spying was exciting, and she wanted to learn more even though she knew it was not her business. With groceries in hand and her head bent down, Melissa turned around and started walking home. Her 500-foot stroll homeward had turned into a 15-minute walk after all the commotion. That was her punishment for being nosy and getting out 2 train stops earlier than intended to spy on someone. The defeated Melissa lifted her groceries towards her chest and went up the subway stairs. The long walk through the crowded city center could start from there. But what she did not expect was that her adventure was just beginning at that point, and this time it would find her instead. Reaching the top of the stairs, she turned right to continue her route. But before she could turn her body, Melissa was stopped in her tracks. A gentle hand fell on her shoulder and startled her. She turned around and saw the beggar in her fancy suit standing right before her. Melissa was in shock, and her body started to shiver so much so that she even dropped her grocery bags on the floor because of it. The ground was littered with orange juice cartons and cleaning supplies. She looked up at the mysterious woman, feeling scared for the first time on this crazy journey. All this time, Melissa had the upper hand, following the beggar around without her noticing it. But now the tables had turned. Melissa was looking into the eyes of the mysterious woman, and that woman was looking her up and down. "You're following me. Why is that?" the beggar asked. Melissa was bent down and sat on the ground at that point, trying to recover her fallen oranges. While she groveled in fruit and embarrassment, she apologized for the intrusion from before. She explained that she was just so captivated by the beggar's changing look, she couldn't help herself. The beggar remained silent, but after the explanation from Melissa, the suited man stepped out from behind a parked car. To Melissa, it felt like she was trapped between two fires with no escape. The dude did not seem pleased with her explanation, and now the man also inspected her thoroughly. There was a moment of silence after his inspection, but then he broke it by saying, "What she will do?" That remark confused Melissa's mind. She stood up from the ground, groceries in hand, and asked the man, "What will she do? What's going on?" The beggar noticed Melissa was getting increasingly anxious and tried calming her down. She promised to explain everything in due time, and she started by reminding Melissa about when she asked for help earlier in the day. "Well, that wasn't because I wanted more of your money," the woman said. The mysterious woman explained that the beggar look, including the asking for money act, was a clever disguise, one that was necessary to hide her true intentions for being there. Her true intentions. What was this woman talking about? Melissa was overwhelmed, and her brain felt like exploding. That's when Melissa cut into the conversation. "All right, stop it right there. So you're saying to me that you're not a homeless person, that the entire thing was an act to disguise an ulterior motive? So what is that motive, and who are you?" The unknown woman grinned in response to Melissa's questions. That's when the true identity came to light. The woman said that she worked for the local police. She was placed in an undercover position, in this case that of a homeless woman, to stake out a particular place. The pregnancy is real, though, the policewoman said with a friendly face. The place that she was tasked to stake out was a local pharmacy. It appeared like a normal, family-owned business at first glance, but secretly, it was a cover-up for a large illegal drug operation, one that dominated the criminal scene and had been on the radar of the police force for years. The police had been trying to catch these criminals for a long time, but they were smart and always managed to escape punishment. That's why the policewoman was assigned to watch and later join the group, hoping to finally catch them. But there was a big problem. No one pays attention to a dirty person, so she could watch the group without anyone noticing. However, a pharmacy wouldn't sell drugs to a pregnant woman, so she couldn't pretend to be one to catch them. Melissa understood the plan and why pretending to be pregnant wouldn't work. The policewoman explained they needed hardcore evidence on camera. They knew Melissa had been following them and had planned for her to find them again. They needed Melissa to go into the pharmacy and order some illegal drugs using the code name they had discovered. Melissa was shocked but didn't want to get involved. She tried to walk away, but the policewoman stopped her. She promised Melissa's safety and explained they were close to catching the criminals. Melissa hesitated but eventually agreed to help. It took some convincing, but after the female police officer calmed her down, Melissa agreed to help. Everything happened quickly after that. They took Melissa to a parked van where a surveillance team was ready. Melissa was given a new blouse with a hidden camera button, and she had to enter the place just before it closed. The place was empty of customers, only staff members were there, and Melissa stood inside. Melissa was nervous but made sure not to draw attention. She walked slowly to the counter and ordered the recipe with the secret code name. The clerk inspected her closely, but eventually nodded and went to the back. Melissa could breathe again. The first step was successful, but she still had more to do. The people in the van were relieved, and they watched the hidden camera feed, waiting for the clerk to return. Melissa waited nervously at the front desk. It felt like hours, but finally, the clerk returned and handed her a small sealed package. This was the evidence the police needed. The camera had captured it all. Seconds later, the police entered the pharmacy and arrested the clerk. They opened Melissa's package and confirmed it was the substance they were looking for. They quickly identified and arrested his fellow employees. The mission was a success, and Melissa was part of it. The police wanted to show their gratitude, so Melissa received a letter the next day inviting her to the police station. She knew it was about the case but didn't expect the celebration. The station was decorated, and there was a cake in her honor. The police captain thanked her, but the female officer who pretended to be a beggar was the most heartfelt, saying, "We couldn't have done this without you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart."